When you look up into the night sky or sometimes into the daytime sky, you'll see our moon. Sometimes it will appear round and full, and other times just a thin sliver. These shapes, of course, are called the phases of the moon, and they depend on how sunlight is falling on the part of the moon we can see. The moon is constantly in orbit around the Earth. It turns as it orbits the Earth so that one side of the moon is always facing towards the Earth. What causes the phases is how the sunlight falls on the side of the moon that faces the Earth. Let me show you. Right now you, the viewer, are playing the part of the Earth, looking up at the moon in your sky. Sunlight is coming from a position behind you, behind the Earth. As I said before, one side of the moon is always facing towards the Earth, so we'll only ever see that one near side of the moon. Right now, that near side is bathed in sunlight. The entire half of the moon that's pointing towards the Earth is lit up by the sun. So we see a beautiful round disk in our sky that we call the full moon. As we move away from full moon, we'll see less of that side lit up by the sun. We call that waning. So for instance, as we move away from the sun in our orbit around the Earth, now much of the moon is still lit up by the sun, but some of the part that's facing the Earth is in shadow. We don't see a full moon anymore. We call this a waning gibbous moon. If I continue to go around the Earth, now half of the moon is of course facing the sun, half of the moon is facing away from the sun. That means half the moon is lit up while half is in darkness. Of course, they're not necessarily the same halves that are pointing towards the Earth. We can only see the half of the moon pointed towards the Earth. We can't see the other half. So what we see is the half moon pointed towards the Earth, and we can only make out half of that, the half that's lit up by the sun. Half of a half is a quarter, so we call this a quarter moon. In this case, the last quarter moon, as we're going away from full moon. If we continue on, now even more of the moon is seen in darkness, and what we can see is only a bright sliver of it facing towards the Earth. That's because most of the side of the moon that's lit up by the sun is now facing away from the Earth. We call this a waning crescent moon. That is, it's becoming less and less bright every day, and we are seeing more and more of it in shadow. In fact, as we continue around, we're going to see that the side facing the Earth is completely in shadow. Of course, it's going to be a little hard to see that because we'll also be facing into the sun when we do. The new moon happens when the moon is on the same side of the Earth as the sun. So the sunlight is lighting up the side facing away from the Earth. The side facing towards the Earth is totally dark. It's very hard to see as a result, and even more hard to see because it's only up during daylight when the sky is already quite bright. So it drowns out the sight of the moon. But never fear, the moon will reappear very shortly as we continue to go around. Now, once again, we can see a small part of the moon lit up by the sun. Of the half facing us, a small fraction is lit, so we call that a waxing crescent moon. Now, as we go from new towards full, the moon will be getting brighter, more full, from day to day. For instance, as I continue to go around, now once again, half of the moon is lit up, half in darkness, and we see one half of each. Again, we have a quarter moon. In this case, it's called the first quarter. Moving around farther still, now even more of the moon is lit up, and so once again we have a gibbous moon. In this case, because it's getting more full, it's a waxing gibbous moon. And finally, after about 29 days, maybe a little more, we'll be back in the position where the side of the moon facing the Earth is once again completely lit up by sunlight. We have a full moon again.